beautiful day. And you definitely want to watch this now, replay, scrub through this, because I am just super, super happy to have Donna Star here with us today. She is not only an exceptional executive coach and friend, but she is an amazing writer, a creative, action oriented, just intelligent kind of writer and creator. She has this amazing ability of being able to put herself out there and her stories into the world and not only connect and relate to people, but also cause people to actually take action and have some kind of actionable steps to it. And I just love I every time we get on a session together, I'm just so happy for us to be able to talk and chat, and we just get into so many good things. So again, this very excited to have Donna here, and this is going to be really great for you guys, especially if you're thinking about writing a book, creating content where you want people to take action and reach out to you. So that is it. Donna, how the heck are you?
I don't even know how to follow up with that, but I'm happy to be here with you. And I know you just said a lot of very kind things to me, and I appreciate that. But without you, my content wouldn't have driven the engagement that I have. And so I owe all of that to you, which is really why I thought this would be such a great idea for us to talk together, because I am a strong writer. I did write a book, but I didn't know how to write to capture people the way you do. So I'm very grateful for you.
Thanks, Donna. Appreciate it. Yes, that's the funny thing about social media. And yeah, it's great to put your stuff out there and put your voice out there and share value and share your knowledge and tell your stories. And that's great for building your audience and connecting with people. But when it comes to getting someone to reach out to you, to take an action, to buy your book, to want to get on a call with you, there's kind of a misconception that you just ask. And you know what? That's actually funny, because that is a big part. It is just about asking, but it feels difficult, right? It feels like maybe kind of salesy, kind of inauthentic. But there are great ways that you can be authentic and connect and still ask people to reach out to you. Namely through telling stories. Using this story seller post is what I call it, my style. It's nothing new, but that's something that you do really well at. So can you tell us, how do you think about your content? How do you incorporate story and getting people to talk to you?
Well, I'm probably not a prototypical content creator on LinkedIn, because I don't. On Instagram, I have a calendar, but on LinkedIn, I give myself a set amount of time in the morning usually, and then I think about what comes up and how I can weave a story around that. So it is authentic on LinkedIn. But in the beginning, I was doing that when I met with you. I just want to go back a tiny bit, because I really want to talk about how you helped me, because I think it's so important for the people out there that are creating content. Is you reached out to me on a DM and you had some value. I get reached out to, as everybody who's active on LinkedIn does, with more sales calls than I can ever. It's mind-boggling how little research people do on DMs, and that is the opposite of what you do. You actually were like, hey, you want to jump on a call? I see a few things. I really think I can help you. And you did not actually sell me. You were like, hey, this is what I think I can help you with. And you gave me concrete examples. So I want to go back there. And you were like, you are a good writer, but there's no asks in your posts. You're not asking for business. You're not asking, you're not promoting programs. You're just writing, which is great, but it would be even better if you added an ask. And I know, and tell me if this is true, how you remember it, but that I fought you pretty hard on the ask, because I thought, oh, I'm doing great on LinkedIn. I didn't say it quite like that, but I thought I was doing well on LinkedIn, and I was uncomfortable with the ask. There's a lot of fear. I see, the headline, and I want to address that. Is I was afraid that people would be like, oh, Donna's only here on LinkedIn to sell me. And that isn't what I'm about. And I know it's not what you're about. Yes, we want to serve more people, but I was afraid to ask. And there's what I love about you is you had a nice way to add the ask in. you know? And if there was a post where I said to you, I just don't feel comfortable about the yes, you're like, you be you, do what feels right to you. But we did workshops together. You helped me promote a couple of workshops. You helped me pick out some good stories from my book. You helped me take my writing to another level by adding the with them, what's in it for the person reading it. Like, what are they going to get if they work with you? What results do you guarantee? And specifically, I think for coaches, it is hard to tell you exactly what our outcomes will be, because so much of it depends on the client. So we had so many good discussions about that. I know I went on a long time, but you did a lot for me.
Mm. Thanks, Donna. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I'm so happy that you felt that way about my approach and how I reached out to you and gave that value first. Just saw, because I genuinely, first saw your profile and saw your writing. I'm like, this is great stuff. Donna seems like a cool person. And then it was just like, I noticed a gap. I noticed something that you could be doing to improve that, or to do what I help people do, to bring in, to connect with more people, to talk to more clients, have more conversations. And so I think one of the biggest shifts you can make to help yourself ask more, to get more people reaching out to you, is really a mindset shift and a way of asking. And what it is this value first approach. And it's a way, and it's saying that if you want to hear more about this specific thing, reach out to me. And you do that consistently over time. I think a big problem is that people just all of a sudden they put out a post that's just like, hey, here's my shit, you want to buy it? And then it's like, well, where did that come from? What are you even talking about? But when you consistently ask in a value first way, people are going to respond and even welcome the response. So you say you tell a story about a client who is having a problem, and then you helped them with your solution using some kind of certain technique. Well, of course, you can't just change someone's life in a post. So you say, hey, if you want to hear more about this technique and how it could apply to you, I'd be happy to get on a call with you. And that's the truth, right? Then it's so authentic. You're happy to get on a call. And you know what? Not only that, it's your mission to help people, right? So let people know, this is my mission to help people with things. So let's get on a call. So in that way, your ask can be very authentic and natural.
Right. And I feel like that is what you helped me with, because I was so uncomfortable with the ask. I really was. And, in the beginning, I was uncomfortable even being on LinkedIn, because I came from the talent acquisition, human capital space. And I was like, oh, people are going to think, I had all this I call it head trash about what people would think of me. And now when I post with your help and also just consistency, I don't really think about it so much, because one post has a little bit of impact, maybe a lot of impact if it's a great post. But people, by and large, are not remembering all your posts. They may share it, they may like it, they may comment, but they've moved on. So the amount of energy that we put on worrying about a post is like a nanosecond for the person reading the post. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to get over. I love that you brought up the consistency piece, because I don't generally write on the weekends, but I write probably 4 times a week, easy.
Yeah. Well, so about the mindset shift for you, was there like a kind of aha kind of moment, maybe in something of when we were, in a session, or just, is there like a big point that kind of stuck with you that was like, made it easier to ask, something like that stood out? Or
I
was
think
it
the
more
workshops were like a gentle way in, because then I could see who showed up for a workshop. So it felt like an easier ask to actually provide a workshop. So maybe, and I think the first workshop we did, even before we did the workshop, we came up with what do you really want was one of our messages. And then I created a Calendly link for what do you really want. And I think we picked a number of try to book 5 what do you really want calls. And so I did a couple of posts around that, and I filled up to 5 in no time. And I think that was an aha moment for me, that if you are specific in your ask, you will get what you ask for. That was actually the more of an aha moment. And I think you weren't surprised at all. And I was like, I got 5 people in 5 seconds. Literally that day, I think I filled out my calendar.
Awesome, Donna. Yeah, I'm so glad you bring that up. Like, yeah, if you don't normally ask people to get onto calls with you, the reality is that there are so many people out there that are, if you would just ask them, they would be happy to want to talk to you. Because especially if you've been posting content consistently, they're like on the fence. There's just no excuse. There's no reason for them to want to reach out to you, really, because you don't have an ask. And right now, like, yeah, that's why I'm glad you brought that up, because if you were to just ask and say, hey, I have 5 spots open to do a something call, say that it's your, it could be the name of your program kind of call, or you know what, I just really want to give back to everyone who's been following me. I'm going to open up, 5 spots next week just to have calls for anyone who wants them. You could literally say that for anyone who wants them. And this will work beautifully as a first time ask, because right now there are a lot of people that are right there that are following you that would just love to have a conversation with you. So yeah, I think that's a great entry point to getting calls. And with the workshop too, it is kind of difficult. So it's difficult to create content and just say, hey, get on a call with me if you want, because you have to do that consistently over time, and you have to have a strong offer for that to work well. So a perfect in between, in a way that feels more maybe authentic and easier, an intermediate step is this workshop. Because now all of a sudden, after every post, it's like, hey, you want to learn more about this? I've got a workshop coming up next week, and we're going to go more in depth. How easy is that? You get people onto a workshop. It's easy to promote it as much as you want. And then you get people in the workshop, then they get to experience your coaching, your method of thinking, how you help people. You get more one-on-one, and it's still free, giving value. And then you can follow up with all those people and then be like, hey, well, do you want to we can be happy to have a more in-depth conversation. And by then, they've been following your content and they came to your workshop. They got so much from you. And then it's just easy to be able to ask someone for a next step. So
right. And I think all the marketing pieces are connected, right? So if you do the workshop, you get some emails, you have some closer connections, you have certainly a LinkedIn connection, but you can take it off LinkedIn and add them to your email list. And I have a biweekly email that I send out, and you can connect with them. And then I like your DM strategy, which you and I worked on, which is still uncomfortable for me, I have to say. Like, as much progress as I've made with you, I always can make more progress. And for me, a DM strategy is harder. And I think you're an expert at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The DMs is difficult because everyone gets pitch slapped all the time. Everyone does it. Most people do it not very well. But yes, there's definitely a good way to authentically reach out to people. And it's the way that you're sending a message. Again, it's a value first approach. For me, it's what I call giving the gift. So, I'll say like, hey, I noticed that you're not doing calls to action, or I'm curious, do you have this kind of system in place in your business? So you're not just like, hey, here's me, here's how I help people. If you want to learn more, let me know. That's nothing. There's no relationship. Instead, it's like, hey, have you tried something like this before? And then from there, you can actually have a conversation and invite them on. And so it's just a different way of thinking. It's not like it's any harder necessarily, because you can even automate these things. But
it just feels more personal. There's one thing about a post and there's another thing about a DM. But I feel like if somebody comments on your post, and let me know if you agree, they've opened up the dialogue. No, I wouldn't attack them. I don't believe in that. But I always thank people for posting. And then I might say in the DM, I really appreciate you commenting on my posts, and I'd love to continue the conversation. So I'm a little softer sell, not than you, but in general on that, because I'm so turned off by the people that, like, if I agree to their connection, and right now I think twice about accepting a connection request. I really do. I never thought I'd be that person, because you want to build your network, but you actually want to build an authentic network, not just a numbers network. And when somebody reaches out to me and say, oh, I'm so happy we're connected, and then they sell me a sell thing like this, I'm like, why did I do that? Like, why did they do that? That has to be the worst sales approach of all time. I cannot imagine it works.
Yeah. And,
So I'm very sensitive to a DM strategy because of that.
Yeah. 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 Right. I mean, I guess a lot of people do it. So it does work, but it's because of numbers, just like sheer numbers. Yeah. I mean, the reality is if you're just, I guess reality is if you don't have a big following on LinkedIn, it's very difficult to bring in clients organically through content, especially consistently and predictably. You really just can't do it. So, and if you need clients, if that's something you're really concerned about, there's no better option than the DMs. And it is a great option. But again, you have to do it the right way, because not only we get a better response, but you'll feel good about it. You'll actually want to stick to it and commit to it. And again, when you're giving value, when you're doing it in this way that, that I do and that you're doing, it's actually going to work.
Yeah, it's something I still need to work on. So you have taught me so much, and that's something that still feels somewhat uncomfortable to me. But I think you should do a whole workshop just on a DM strategy.
Okay, I will. I'm writing that down, because I've been thinking about that too. The world needs better DMs. The world needs better conversations in the inbox, because it's one-on-one. It is great to have them, just not when you're being impersonal and spammy.
Yeah, well, it just taught me a lot.
Yeah. So speaking a little bit more about fear and doing things, I want to talk a bit about your book, about Unsuccessfully Successful, that you have written. Is great, by the way. Yes. I've read it and I love it, and I just love the way that you storytell. I love the way that you express yourself, and how real you are, and how easy it is to relate to you in your writing. I feel like I haven't had experience with most of the things that you have in your book, but I still feel like
I'm a lot
really
older.
You. No, just a tiny bit. I don't think so. And so I can just relate, and it's so great. But I know that there's a lot of people that are watching this, and our audiences, that they have a lot of fear over taking a step like this. I mean, who doesn't want to write a book? If you're a leader, if you're a coach, we all do, but there's so many barriers to it. So can you talk a little bit about what those barriers were for you, and what allowed you to just do it?
Yeah, well, a lot of my and I think maybe this from working with me, is sometimes I just do it. Like, I don't overthink things. I try not to do that, because I think that's like the enemy of action, overthinking. And so my first business coach, Jeff St. Laurent, if he's anywhere around, I hired him right out of my coaching program, and he said, I want you to write emails. I want you to grow your email list. And I was like, I'm not a writer. I can't do that. And he's like, I think you should write 3 times a week. And I'm like, well, I just came from a corporate environment. They're under siege in email. Like, literally, it's a war of trying to manage your inbox. So I agreed to do biweekly. And I have been doing that for just about 4 years, 3.5 years. And so I had a body of work, and people were like, oh, we like your writing. And a friend of mine who I met on LinkedIn or on social media, I've never met her in person, signed up for a program through Georgetown called, now it's called Manuscripts. And I just signed up because I was like, oh, this will be easy to write a book. I have all these emails. Well, I was wrong. It was not easy. But just like on LinkedIn, it's about consistency. That program is all about accountability. People think writers need to write like, Thoreau on a pond by themselves, isolated. And this program is the opposite. Never write alone is the tagline. So they have classes every week. You get editors. They have so much support. I could not have done it without that. I'm a deadline girl. So I needed the structure of that and the consistency. And the founder of the program, Eric Custer, who I would definitely check out, he's amazing, took his approach from launching startups to launching books. He doesn't actually say writing a book. He talks about launching a book, like launching a company. And the support was really good. And when I talk to him, he talks faster than I do. He said, if you stick with this program, you will have a book in hand a year from today. And so that stayed with me, because I am very results oriented. if I stayed with it. And I thought about quitting. And, you know, there was quite a bit of drop off in the cohort that I was in. You can always think of a reason not to do something if it becomes too hard. You can use a lot of excuses. I don't have the time. My life's in chaos. Well, my dad died. My brother had a heart attack. I moved twice. I could have easily found excuses not to write the book, but it was really important to me, which is to say, it was a priority for me, and that's why I did it. Life can drag you any which way. So, but consistency was the key for me, and being in that program was the key for me. I hope that answered your question. I gave you a lot of information there.
Yeah. That definitely makes sense that you've had this attitude. And I'm sure that's been built up, over a long time of just doing things and having a deadline is really important and being consistent. What about some of the fears, maybe, did you feel any like who am I to write a book, or am I actually going to be able to do this, or even just starting? Like, did you just kind of decide one day that, hey, I just want to do this? Or was it, there were times before?
Yes, I did. Yes, sorry. I did decide one day, I'm just going to do it. I write all the time, and I actually enjoy writing now. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. And so I just didn't overthink it again. And I just had the call with Eric, and I just signed up for the program. But so much fear, because there's a difference between writing a book in isolation, even though you're in this program, you are writing on your own. And you don't think like what I'm writing will be in somebody's hands. So there was a safety in the actual writing process. But when I realized that people were actually going to read it, I was like, oh my God, am I going to write about this? So there was a tremendous amount of fear. And now the book is out there, and I talk about some subjects that are not easy to talk about. But I was like, my whole thing about being a coach, and I know we went through a branding piece together, is I don't know what my secret sauce is. I mean, I drive results. Is that my secret sauce is that I am as authentic and real as I say it like it is. That's my brand. And that's what my book is about, is don't try to be anybody that you're not, because you won't be successful that way. And that is how I feel about LinkedIn. Don't try to keep up with all the coaches out there that look like they're doing amazing things, or whatever your subject area is. Just be you, and no one else can do that. So a lot of fear, but a lot of confidence building in the process.
Yeah, totally. What about the launch process? Like, taking the book and promoting it to your audience. How did we worked on a plan to do that, but how did that go? Maybe what were some of the struggles?
Yeah, so it's just when you think you conquer fear, it never really happens, because it shows up in different places. So I write relatively often. The workshops are a little harder for me, even though I seem like I have a fairly demonstrative personality. I'm not really comfortable front and center. I'm much more comfortable behind my words than my physical presence. So I noticed that I wrote the book, and they have this whole process you follow, right? But you have to launch the book. So either you have to do an event, or they recommend that you do that. And so I noticed I hired a signature talk coach. I have my signature, and I'm not getting any speaking engagements because I'm not putting myself out there. So I spoke to her, and she's like, well, just do a workshop. Take your signature talk and put it in a workshop. So once she sent that to me, it like lights went off, and I'm like doing a workshop tomorrow at noon. On my book is called Unsuccessfully Successful, and just about my corporate life as a single mom and just the lessons I learned along the way. That feels more comfortable to me because of you to do that. But to have a speaking engagement and talk about it, there's a tremendous amount of fear around that for me. So just like how we work together in the ask, now the ask is easier, but now getting out in public and talking about the book and doing my signature talk is my next hurdle. So fear follows you. Or, you never really, you just have to make friends with fear. You're never going to not be fearful. I mean, fear is there for a reason, to keep you safe. But if you recognize it, then you can make changes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Fear is a part of life. There's no reason to fight it. It's just to recognize it, sit with it, and just know that it's going to be there no matter what. It's supposed to be there. Fear is a
It's
good
supposed to
thing.
be there.
Pushes you to where you're supposed to go, away from where you're not supposed to go sometimes. But yeah, deep down, you always know what you want, and you just know that the fear's there and that you can get to the other side and
You
that it's
can,
okay.
and yeah, it's whack-a-mole, right? Fear is whack-a-mole,
Nice.
you know?
Yeah.
So anyway,
So what are some
so
of the things you're
yeah.
going to talk about tomorrow? What are some of
So in the signature talk, I'm going to talk about boundaries. Everybody talks about boundaries, but what does it actually mean to set one up, and how do you feel? So some very instructional tips on creating boundaries. I call them boundary busters. And then the second part is about sniff test. We tell ourselves stories all the time. Oh, I'm not going to DM that person because I haven't spoken to them in a year, and they're going to think I only need to reach out to them when I want something. And I think anybody listening to that can relate to something like that. That's just a story in your head. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? They don't respond. Big deal. And if they do respond, then that's great. But we tell ourselves a lot of stories. So I call it the sniff test, how to figure out fact from fiction in your brain. When you talk about mindset, that's a huge mindset shift to not let your brain run you. Your thoughts are not positive. They are not helping you jump out of an airplane most of the time. That's the second part. And then the third part is say it like it is. What are you not saying and why? And just a little special trick I have to keep you accountable for doing what you say you want to do. So that's what I'm covering in the workshop tomorrow.
Nice. Yeah, I love that, Donna. Yeah, because you always, talk about things, the philosophy stuff, but you also bring it down to the level of action, of like, yeah, an idea, a technique, a method, like something you can actually do to improve. So it sounds really awesome, really actionable. Yeah. I'm glad. Well, I mean, yeah. So again, Donna, thanks so much for sharing all of this today, and thanks so much for being such an amazing client for me. Like I said, I have so much fun, and you're so easy and fun to work with. And
I just want you to repeat that I'm easy for the people in my family that may be listening. No, I'm kidding.
Yes. Yeah, very easy. It's just, I would just say what to do, and then you would go do it. You would actually do the things that, that I would recommend coach you to do too. So that's always
well, I know
awesome.
You're running some new programs too. And I just want to say that anybody that's on the fence or considering working with you should definitely do it. You have a very nice way about you. And you make it easy to get through the hurdles that we all go through. And you have made me exponentially better in LinkedIn and just as a writer, and the way to think about your audience. Sometimes we write and we're like so concerned about how we feel, but you really got me to shift and say, how does the reader feel? And so I love your new program with the leads. And I really want to just say that if you're considering working with RC, you should just do it.
Thank you, Donna. Thanks so much. That means a lot. It means so much to me. Appreciate it. So
thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Yeah, I think now, good time to wrap it up here, but we'll definitely do it again sometime. Looking forward to, of course, we're in touch, and let's do another show. Let's talk about some more important things.
I'll keep you posted about the book.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm going to go and I'll put a link to the workshop in the description of the live here. Once we get off, I'm going to, update the points and put in a description and tag you and everything.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody that took the time to listen to us today, too.
Mm-hmm. See you later.